So today we're going to switch the format up a little bit. I'm going to pass the screen over to Annie. She's going to, I'm going to play some videos from Annie's program. And then she's going to introduce and discuss movement principle 2B, right? And just to kind of review what we did on Monday, we were focusing on 2A, right? Where we were looking at the transverse plane. 2B now, in regards to the pelvis, right, where the focus of the pelvis is now that kind of side-to-side action, right? What happens when the pelvis tilts side to side? Okay, so without any more delay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I'm going to start the video and then pause it for a second, and then I just want your confirmation that you can hear the audio, right? So there's going to be about maybe 15 minutes of introduction to movement principle 2B, and then a short demonstration, and then we'll practice Annie style class, about 45 minutes. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start that video now. Sure. Cool. All right.
Pelvis in a neutral state. And yogis, namaste yogis. Let's move forward.
All right. Can I get a confirmation on audio? Can you folks hear that?
You can hear it.
Yes? Okay, great. Let's get it going. Annie Carpenter, everybody.
In our movement principles to movement principle 2B. So now we're going to look at balancing the pelvis primarily in the coronal plane. You'll recall the coronal plane is that basically side-to-side movement. Whereas in 2A, we were looking at transverse plane. How much does the pelvis need to rotate? Now we're looking at, is one side of the pelvis getting hiked up, impacting that side of the lower back and above. So let's come back to the idea of, why am I doing this pose? What's it for? And all of the poses that live in this movement principle 2B have to do with lengthening the hip flexor system. So this is inner groin, deep pelvis work. As you know, most of us have very tight hip flexors in general because we sit a lot, because we don't move a lot. And again, maybe it's genes. So we all need to do release work in our psoas system. And if you're not familiar with this, we'll show you some nice pictures. The iliopsoas system is a long set of muscles that connects the upper body with the lower body and has everything to do with our ability to carry our pelvis in a neutral state and move freely like in walking. Really, the psoas system is the prime mover in our walking. So it really essential work. One of the reasons that the psoas system can be thrown off balance is because of hamstring tightness. And as you recall, the hamstrings are the back of the thigh. And the hamstrings, when they're tight, they will pull the pelvis under. And depending upon what part of our hip flexor system, that generally will shorten the hip flexor system because we're sitting in this kind of tucked state all the time. So all of the poses, and that's miserable, all of the poses that live within this 2B category are poses that are designed to create balance between how long, flexible, and strong our hamstrings are, and in the front body, how long, flexible, and strong our hip flexors are. They have a very intimate relationship. Now, because when we do poses that create this stretching, lengthening, and strengthening in this direction, because we tend to be tight, the pelvis is naturally thrown off. Most of the poses that are the most effective at this are asymmetrical poses in the legs. And all I mean by that is one leg is forward, one leg is back, or one leg is down, one leg is up in any orientation. And again, let's think of those orientations. The classic pose for movement principle 2B, our blueprint, is Utthita Hasta Padangustasana 1. That's the one where you're standing balanced and you hook the big toe and hold it up. You can use the strap, of course. So that's the direction. And you can see that the standing leg in that position would be stretched in the front, that hip flexor. The lifted leg would be stretching the hamstring. So as we do that, if you have a tight hamstring, what's going to happen? The leg that's up, that side is going to tuck and lift up. If you have a weak hip flexor on that standing side, you may find yourself unable to hold yourself up, and you may find yourself swaying off into the side, into that standing hip, right? So again, it's both. It's not one or the other. It's always the effort with the return. So for most people, much of the time, we have two essential instructions that will create more and more balance in the coronal plane, in the pelvis. In the front leg, or in this case, the lifted leg, again, if you're doing this pose, is the root of that thigh. And when I say root, I'm talking about the part of the thigh that you can feel that's closest to the hip. That part of the thigh needs to move down, needs to descend, press into its own hamstring. As you do that, if that hip is hiked up, it will be drawn down. Now, not everyone can take this action too far, but many can. If you keep doing that, you will shift into that outer hip in this case, standing leg. And so the return here will be firming that outer thigh in. The top of that thigh moves in towards your midline. Again, if you were to take that too far, you need to come back to your lifted leg and start again with the effort. So effort and return, finding just the right amount of each of those things in each of your legs. It will be different for you for today. Now again, if you are doing this pose in different orientations, so let's think of another one. How about Virabhadrasana 3? It will be the same work, although you may have to emphasize the lifted leg before the standing leg for some of your students. Or suppose you're in handstand and you're lowering one leg down. Can you see that it's exactly the same pose? Same effort in return, just like if you're lying on your back with one leg up, doing Supta Padangustasana 1. It will be the same effort and return, completely different orientation. In the end, we balance the sides of the pelvis so that the sacrum can rest happily in the middle and support evenly the bones of the lower back and the muscles and organs that surround it, so that we create height, ease, spaciousness, and of course, integrity, all the way up through the spine, all the way up through the Sushumna. This is the work of movement principle 2B. Namaste.
Fantastic. All right, so before I move on to the demo video, to kind of summarize and kind of reframe what Annie's talking about with movement principle 2B, it's very interesting imagery to think of your pelvis as if it were like a swing, right? And the hip flexors on the front side, right, along with the attachments of your QL or quadratus lumborum on the back side and your erector spinae, the muscles on the back, right? They connect to the pelvis, and they're kind of like a swing, right? If one side of the chain, if the front side of the chain is shorter than the back side, then you can just kind of imagine that swing. Let me stop sharing for a second. Pause share device. There you go. All right, so you can kind of see here that oh, my video's not on. Okay, am I back? see me? Where did it go? Stop video. Can you all see me?
Yes.
You can, okay. I just cannot see myself. Okay, but anyway, okay. So you can think of it as a swing, right? Like this is the seat of the swing, and then you have the two chains in the front, and you have a chain in the back. If one side, right, if one of the chains on one side is shorter than the other, you can just kind of imagine that the seat is kind of tilting over in one side, right? One side just lifted up and the other one is lower. So what we're trying to do here in movement principle 2B is take the thighs, right, the femurs, because those are the directors of the pelvis. The steering wheels is push this side back down until it's leveled with the other side. And as I was mentioning on Monday, that walking, right? So any instance or situation that you find your body where one foot is not touching the floor, it's going to naturally begin to move your pelvis, right, up and down. And so even within that kind of imbalance of connection to the ground, we still want to engage and be aware of the return, right? So the effort would be to push that thigh down, the leg that's lifted off of the floor. And then if you do that too much, your butt's going to swing out to the side, right? Then you got to rebalance it out and then push the outside hip back to the midline. I think we'll go ahead and I'll share my screen once again. And in the next video, Annie's going to demonstrate and give examples of how that applies to yoga poses. Right? And she mentioned Uttita Parahasta number 1. And that's simply the pose that we were doing on our backs. Here you go. Okay, start share. The pose that we were doing on our backs with a strap, but that's called Supta Parahasta, or just reclined or supine on your back. The other version is when you're standing up. Right? And when we progressed through our class on Monday, we ended up trying it standing. And so, or when we progress today, right, you'll end up doing the full expression of the pose, your version of it. All right, so here's that video, and then after this one, we'll get into a practice.
Namaste, yogis. So let's move forward with our focus on stabilizing and balancing the pelvic girdle. Now we're working on the movement principle 2, the B section. So this is the one where we're primarily concerned with balancing the pelvis in the coronal plane. And recall, the coronal plane is that side-to-side plane, so keeping the hips level right and left. And most of the movements that require this type of stabilization are movements that stretch the hamstring muscle, that's the muscle behind the thigh bone, and or stretch the psoas, your deep hip flexor muscle, and or strengthen the psoas. And it's a combination of these three things that for almost everybody on the planet is so hard. And that's why it's challenging to figure out how to place your pelvis in a balanced way. So your pelvis, the sacrum, and thus the spine are set up in a really balanced, really stable, and a situation that has integrity to it. So one of the classic poses that challenges the body in this direction is the beloved Supta Padangusthasana 1. So Tiffany, will you please lie on your back and grab your strap? And especially when we're doing slow, deep work like this to really build awareness, I highly recommend you use a strap, even if your hamstrings are really, really relaxed and open. It's just a nice way to kind of keep your ego out of it and do the work. So we're going to take the right leg up and the left leg out on the ground. And so what we're looking at here is two things. Is the pelvis balanced right and left? And you can see from her shirt that it's not, and that's normal. And am I able to keep the natural curve in my lower back? So if we allow the ego to run wild and we say, woohoo, look at how high my leg can go, that's pretty good. What happens is you get more off in that coronal plane. And I think you can see here that her back has completely flattened and her pelvis has tucked into that posterior tilt. So we're going to check the ego and we're going to lower the leg more than she needs it, just for argument's sake. And that alone, you can see this thigh is now resting in its descended state. The pelvis is neutral, and you can see very clearly her natural curve in her lower back. But you're not getting a stretch in your hamstring, right? So we're not really finding our edge. All these poses are finding that, how much effort can I do with enough return so I get that balance? So for her, the effort is going to be to take the leg higher. And as she does that, she needs to move the root of that thigh in the opposite direction. And I think you can see, so let's let that go. The more I take the leg higher, the more I need the root of that thigh to move down. Now, if she could take this too far, this hip would start to splay off to the side. And then she would need to hug in on this side to keep that balance. So right, check, balance, back and forth, effort, return, until we find just the right place. So the pelvis is level in the coronal plane, and in the sagittal plane, we have the natural curve. This thigh is doing its job of descending, keeping the pelvis very happy, just like the first movement principle that we worked on. So this is Supta Padangusthasana 1, and I want you to do your second side, but for time's sake, we're gonna let this go, and we're gonna come on up to standing. Okay, so we're gonna do the same pose standing up, which as you know is called Utthita Hasta Padangusthasana, the beloved. It's usually not so beloved. And if this is a really hard pose for you, I'm going to encourage you to get a chair out and rest your foot on that chair so you don't get any grip and you can really do the work. Are you ready? You want to do a different leg? Okay. So you're going to stand tall, shift the weight in the left, and take the right leg up. And for today, we're going to hold both of the straps with that right hand and put the other hand on the hip, just for awareness sake. And I think you can see here in Tiff that she is pretty level. So let's let that ego go and take the leg way up. Well done. And you can see how hiked up this leg is. And this side of the pelvis is way up. So to correct, we're going to take the root of that thigh down, 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 down. And now we're going to go too far. Take it so far down that she's sitting in the outer standing hip. We call this bus stop pose. So she's going to hug this in. She takes that too far. And once again, so you see the dance, effort and return, and effort, well done, and return. And then they just get smaller and smaller adjustments until you find what's just right. And what you'll find is that as the leg warms up, you can get the leg to go higher and still get this effort and return going so that you create balance in your pelvis. Pelvis happy, sacrum happy, spine long and centered. And that's what it's all about. Go ahead and rest for just a moment. I want to point out one last thing. Could you stay standing and hand me that strap, please? Thank you. So the line of the psoas muscle, I'm going to show in two directions. This is the hip flexor. Now, you probably know there's two of them. For this work, we're primarily focused on the psoas, the iliopsoas, are the two muscles. The psoas is the primary. In terms of the vertical length, it attaches about this high, right at the, probably most people, it's T12 or 11, so right at the bottom rib area. And it passes along the center and comes, I don't want to be too fresh, but it attaches to the top of the inner thigh close to the back. So like this. Let's turn sideways now. The thing that's most important, maybe not most important, but also important, can you put your arms up high so just wherever you're comfortable, is that the attachment is actually almost in the full back body. So it's sort of along the sides of the vertebra. So think of this muscle in the back body, running along the back surface, underneath all the organs. then it crosses just beside the pubic bone, goes over that Y ligament, so it crosses to the front body, and then, again, sorry for being fresh, moves to almost the back body. So this is an incredible muscle that attaches the upper body to the lower body and attaches the back body to the front body along this course. It's really the only muscle that attaches the leg to the torso. It's a huge, important muscle. And there are more nuances to this muscle that we won't go into today, but suffice it to say that not only, so contract your psoas on your right leg, up, and now contract the upper part of your psoas is going to arch your back, but if you contract the iliacus, whoops, you're going to tuck the pelvis. So it has three opposing actions from one muscle group. It's a very convoluted setup here. If you think about, have you ever watched monkeys climb in trees? That's that psoas system at its best. So what we have to do, because we're bipeds, is we have to control the pelvis so that we can choose to stabilize one thing so that we can move the attached body part with ease and grace. In this case, we're moving the thighs and stabilizing the pelvic bones. And that's what this movement principle is really all about. Releasing and strengthening psoas, stretching hamstrings while stabilizing the pelvis. We hope this helped. Thank you. Namaste.
And there you have it, right? The psoas. It's a very fascinating and interesting muscle, particularly as Annie had mentioned, because it attaches your upper body to your lower body, right? Not just that it goes from the top to the bottom, but it also travels from the back to the front and then back towards the back at the same time. It's the only muscle that has all of these multiple directions in its course. And so as she was mentioning, right, there's three particular articulations that are possible with it, right? One is to flex you at your hip, right, to lessen the angle from your thigh to your pelvis. And then it's also can, if you contract the upper part of the psoas. So when she's saying that the origin or its attachment starts, it connects to the spine, right? Usually around T11, T12, right? Thoracic spine. So just like those very last floating back ribs, the ribs then are attached on the front side. When you contract that, it creates extension in your spine. But then if you contract the most bottomest part, it begins to create some flexion in the lower part of your spine, right? It begins to tuck the tailbone, tuck the pelvis. So you can just kind of imagine being in a seated position all the time where, you know, whether or not you're actively contracting muscles, when they're in that kind of shortened state habitually over long periods of time, that they begin to get good at that, right? And then the other parts of the antagonistic muscles or the complementary muscles, right, the opposing muscles, begin to be too stretched out. It's kind of like, you know, if you're sitting, just using that same example, if you're on an airplane, right, and it's a 5-hour flight, and you know you sit in your chair the entire time, and then when you do finally get up, you feel like you gotta stretch your body out. And that's kind of that idea, right? Or if you're on a really long road trip, that the muscles are in that, whether or not you're actively contracting them, they're in a shortened state, right? So over time, if one doesn't engage and use basically these muscles, right, in multiple dimensions and planes, then they'll get used to being in those kind of stuck positions. Which then here in this instance for movement principle 2B, right, if the front of the body or the hips are always in a flexed position, primarily because of this activity of sitting a lot, then it's going to have, when you do stand, it's going to pull on the pelvis and kind of tilt it in one way, right? Or if if especially on the coronal plane, if you have a wallet or you sit on an uneven surface, right, one side of your butt is always higher than the other, and that's going to produce over time lasting effects. So before we jump into the practice, are there any questions or comments? I want to open that up right now. Good to go. I love that. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen one more time. Grab your straps, have a blocks handy, and go ahead and set yourselves up. We're going to go ahead and practice with Annie, see how she applies these ideas in the body. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Jump to the next thing. Hold on. Oop, just keeps going back. All right. 2B. All right, let's practice, everybody.
Namaste, yogis. So this is a practice focusing on the work of the movement principle 2B. And this is the one where we work to balance the pelvis in the coronal plane, because we have our arms down the side, shoulders are heavy, neck is long, skull is heavy. Just take a big breath in and a long breath out. Beautiful. One more breath. Just arriving on your mat, exhale. Good. Now go ahead and bring your feet so they're about hip width apart. Inhale, stretch your two arms all the way overhead. And as you exhale, hug the right knee into the chest. Take a breath, inhale. And exhale, release the foot down. Inhale, arms overhead. And exhale, second side, hug the knee in. Inhale. And exhale, foot down. Inhale, arms overhead. Exhale, right leg. Once again, bring the right knee into the chest. Good, and let's keep it here and just keep breathing. Drop your shoulders out of the ears and transfer the hands so you're interlacing behind the thigh instead of around the shin. Good, and lower your hands down closer to your sit bones. Not so that your shoulders come up, but just so you can feel it there. And push your thigh into your hands. And when you do that, can you feel your right waist lengthen a little bit? You feel a balancing. It's subtle, but usually you can feel it. Keep that and slide your left leg to straight on the floor. Nice. Good. And if you're like me already, that right hip is hiking up, or my lower back has flattened, my tail is sort of tucked a little. Can you lower that knee? You might even have to let go of your hands, some of you, until, in fact, let's put our hands on our hips. Keep the legs where they are. Are they even right and left? Is your pelvis tucked or has the lower back flattened? Can you find neutral? Good. Now grab your strap. Whoops, is it far away? Grab your strap. Let's continue on this side. Put the strap around the arch of the foot. No need to make a loop, just put the strap around the foot and hold the two ends of the strap in your two arms so your arms are pretty straight, but straight and shoulders on the ground. Go ahead and stretch your right leg to the sky. Good. And to start, let's make it really easy and lower the leg about 3 or 4 inches. Bring your attention to the left leg on the ground. Make sure it's absolutely neutral, so spinning inner thigh down. And what I want you to do is suck that thigh up into its socket. So the leg on the ground sucks back. And that is one really effective way to stabilize, levelize the pelvis. Keep doing that, and then add in the lifted leg, the root of that thigh pushing forward. That's it. And then can you keep those 2 sets of actions and maybe begin to bring the lifted leg a little closer towards the torso, towards your head, right? And at a certain point, as you bring that leg up, either your hip will hike up or your pelvis will tuck and round, and that's too far. Right, let's remember, it's not that those things are necessarily bad things to do, but the aim here is to lengthen the down leg hip flexor and to stabilize the pelvis using the right hip flexor amongst other core muscles. Take one more breath. And exhale. Good. Second side. So put the strap down for just a moment. Have it nearby. And hug the left knee into the chest. Hug it all the way in. And you'll feel that hip hikes up, the pelvis tucks, you get some rounding. Now interlace the hands behind the thigh like we did earlier, and just push that thigh forward until you feel more even right and left. And perhaps you can begin to sense that natural curve in your lower back. Keep all that and start to stretch the right leg to straight on the mat. Spinning that inner thigh slightly down so hips face the ceiling, leg is neutral, and also that groin softens. Like that's one of the main reasons that we do this inner thigh down thing. It moves the lesser trochanter, the bone where your psoas system attaches down so that that hip faces the sky. One more breath. So just feel what it takes here without the hamstring involvement, and then grab your strap. And let's take that leg to the sky. Good. And start with the leg much lower than you know you need. Right? Really easy. Shoulders are down the back, arms are firm and straight. Spin that right inner thigh down. Good. Now keeping that right inner thigh down, suck the thigh back into its socket, just like that. Doesn't that feel good? It feels really solid. And at the same time, push the root of the lifted leg to the front of the room. Tailbone is reaching to the down heel. These are good, you guys. Make the legs super firm, right? Especially the muscles around the knee. That's it. The strap right at the bottom of the ball mount will usually give you the most feedback about all 4 corners of the foot. And then if it makes sense to try to bring the leg a little closer, keep on pulling that right thigh up into the socket. Keep on pressing the root of the left leg towards the front, stabilizing, levelizing your pelvis, and take one last breath. Stretch the back of that leg. Good. Inhale and release. Exhale. Put the strap off to the side. Hug the knees to the chest. Inhale. And rock on up to sitting. Exhale. Good. All right, right onto all fours, please. And just a couple cat-cows. Inhaling, back bending. Exhaling, round. And a couple more. Inhale. And just notice the awareness of the thighs moving in the hips. The thighs stay stable and the pelvic bowl rolls over the top of the thigh bones. Feel that movement. You can make it feel almost kind of juicy rather than brittle. Warm it up. And then on your next inhale, let's find a flat back. So we know it's not flat, it's neutral. And then curl your toes under. Take a big inhale. Strong, straight arms. Exhale, lift your knees just an inch or 2 off the floor. Keep that. And slide your right leg to plank. Just a couple of breaths. And then feel good. And then bring that leg back in. Try not to change the pelvis. Other leg back. Full breath here. Bring it back in. Inhale. Down dog. Exhale. And a couple of breaths. So go ahead and bend your right leg quite a bit. And go ahead and let the hip kind of follow the knee. So, you know, how you roll the hip down. Well done. And now I'd like for you to keep that knee bent, but I'd like for you to push the top of that same side thigh up and back. So can you create a downward dog even when one leg is bent and one leg is straight? Beautiful. And I'll try the other side. Bend the knee. Let it collapse a little. Right? And again, it's not that this is wrong. It's just not about stabilizing. So then push the root of now the left thigh up and back, feeling that it really is the thigh bone that brings the pelvis into a place that's neutral and centered. And then straighten both legs. And use both top thighs. Push them back, pulling your pelvis out of the lower back, lengthening literally each vertebra away from the one below it. Get longer. Very nice. Inhale to plank. A couple of breaths. Yes, this could be my favorite pose. Pick up your right leg just an inch, stabilize, and put it down. Second side, inhale, stabilize, and put it down. Well done, inhale. Lower towards chaturanga, pause if you can, elbows in, inner hand strong, strong legs, and all the way down. Beautiful, baby cobra, inhale. Just a little lift of the chest, tractioning the arms. Nice. Roll both inner thighs up, outer thighs down. Inhale, lift the right leg. So even here, there's a little less displacement of the pelvis. This is a psoas stretch, might be minor for most of you. But I'd like for you to feel, first, just reach that foot back, which is how we usually think about this pose. That's nice to create the length. But can you kind of suck the thigh into its socket and feel how that levelizes the pelvis? And place that foot back down. Let's try the second side. When you're ready, inhale. Pick it up. Good. Nice and broad. Inner thigh high. You'll feel that hamstring work like crazy if you're doing it well. And first, just reach back. And most of us, that will pull the pelvis with it. Suck the thigh back into the socket. And that will usually levelize the hips right and left. Place the foot down. Inhale, maybe a little more lift in the chest. And exhale, roll it all the way down. Nice. Curl your toes, inhale. Slow press to plank, exhale. Take an inhale, plank. Downward facing dog, exhale. Good. Okay, let's float that right leg up. And a couple of breaths here. So same work here. Can you see that this is really the same what we did earlier on our back, Supta Padangusthasana? It's the same shape here. And Tiff is doing this beautifully. The top of the thigh, the standing leg pushing back. That is the piece that keeps that lower back level and happy. Good. Keep the leg. Inhale, plank. So one leg is just floating off the floor. And then right back to three-leg dog. Inhale, use the standing leg, the left thigh, up and back, and downward facing dog. Well done. Second side, flip the leg. Again, for today, we're keeping it all neutral, all day long. Yeah, beautiful. That outer thigh is rolling down, but the work is the right leg, the driving of the top of that thigh back. That's what keeps the pelvis, the lower back, really happy and square. Inhale to plank. So that leg just floats an inch or so off the other leg, beautiful. And right back to three-leg down dog. Push the thigh bone, the standing leg up and back. And downward facing dog, beautiful. We're gonna keep going, please. Inhale, right leg floats, same thing. Exhale, still. And hug the outer thigh in as you press the back thigh up. And those three actions come together to create a nice square level pelvis. Place your hands on your hips, stay low in the torso, and just investigate with your thumbs. Is the lower back even? Are the hips level and square? Strong back leg. Stay low and stretch your two arms overhead for just a breath or two. Bend that front leg, descend the root of the thigh, dig the heel into the floor. Good. Suck it back and hug it in at the hip. Nice, strong back leg, inhale. And lower the hands, exhale. Step to plank, inhale. Lower very slow, exhale. To the cobra or the up dog, full inhalation, stretch your legs. And down dog, exhale. Take a breath. And let it go. Left leg floats, inhaling. Exhale, step through. Come on up to your fingertips. Good. So I like to have about 3 or 4 inches between my feet side to side, so they're like sitting bone distance rather than tightrope. You can go even wider if you feel unsteady. Bend that front leg deep, root of the thigh goes to the earth. Thigh bone sucks back, beautiful. Hugs in. And then as that hugging in and descending stays steady in the front leg, the back thigh presses up. And then the spine shoots out of that happy sacrum. These look great. Stay low, hands to hips. Just check it out. Did you achieve what you were trying to get? Is that lower back even, right and left? Nice. Then stretch your two arms overhead for just a couple of breaths. Very opposing actions create this stability. Front thigh pulling back, right? Hugging in. Root of back thigh lifting. Inhale. Hands down. Step to plank. Exhale, lower slow. Cobra or up dog. Lift the front body out of the legs. Let those front hips stretch out. And then head back to down dog. Exhale. Good. Take a breath. Long exhale here. Good. Inhale here. Bend the legs a lot. Get low. Step or hop. Top of the mat. Inhale long. Exhale fold. Just one breath in your chair pose, please. Bend the legs. Inhale. Sit back. Sit down. Firm arms. And press and rise. And bring your hands to prayer. Exhale. Good. Let's grab the blocks, please. And put the blocks on the floor, about shoulder width apart. And step your feet back. Hands on the blocks. I like them high. And shoulder blades down the back. And you just want to take a moment and really find. So this is, in effect, Ardha Uttanasana. Sternum rise. Separate the feet about sitting bones apart. And just a couple of inches between your feet. Good. Just get used to being in this position. Let your hands take some of the weight, but try to use your hands almost like you're pushing the blocks away. So it's not so much as weight bearing as balancing, stabilizing. Okay, here we go. On your next inhale, lift the right leg up and back. So we're going to probably be here a little longer than you want to be. So if you need to come down before I ask you to, that's fine. Same work. Lifted leg, roll that outer thigh down. Standing leg, root of the thigh back. Outer thigh in. Good. Keep that lifted leg nice and high. Try to get it in line with your hips. And then can you bend the standing leg rather deeply? Keep the lifted leg firm, like you're kicking that foot into a wall. Very nice. And then slow motion, straighten the standing leg. Lifted leg stays strong and high and joyous. Good. Get a little lighter on the hands. Just feel the standing leg doing the work. Yes, you might quiver. Good. And lower that leg down. Inhale and fold. Uttanasana. Exhale. Ooh. Sometimes using the blocks, which is supposed to be our help, actually makes the pose harder. Inhale, come on up. Come onto those blocks again. Good. And again, so rather than leaning on the blocks, feel that you're pushing them away. Sure your feet are pretty much under your hips. And when you're ready, the left leg comes up. Feel free to drop the head and see if the leg is where you want it to be. Spin that leg in, standing thigh back and in, lifted leg, root of thigh to the sky, shoot your heart forward, inhale, bend your standing leg. Try not to let the weight go over the toes. It feels like the thigh is going back. Back leg pressing as if it were into a wall, heart forward. And then slow motion, straighten that leg, get a little lighter on those hands, and lower the foot. Inhale, heart forward, and exhale, fold. Maybe wrap the hands behind the legs. A little push in the calf muscles is often a nice way to soften the groins. Good, so that was our preparation for third warrior. And now we're ready. So move the props, maybe just put them in front of your mat just in case you need them. And then just step your way back to plank. Take an inhale. Lower slow. Cobra or up dog, inhaling. And over the toes, back you go. Downward facing dog. And take a breath. Right leg floats up, inhale. Step all the way up, exhale. Okay, pause on your fingertips. Feel that right thigh hugging in and just turn your back heel flat without letting the right hip splay out, so you have to bring it back. Take a moment here, get really light on the fingers. Reach your heart forward. Ground both feet. So remember, toes of the back foot point to the left front corner of your mat. Stay low, hands on hips. Keep pulling front thigh back even as you're bending. Rolling back inner thigh back. Inhale, arms forward. Pause, send the tailbone to the back heel, and then rise, inhale. And you're in the first warrior pose for just a couple of breaths. Nice. Try to bend the front leg to a right angle. Against that, draw the back inner thigh back and try to slide the tailbone out of the lower back. Beautiful, beautiful work. Ready? Inhale, lie down on the front leg. Now here's where if you needed them, you'd put your hands on blocks. Turn that back leg in again. And on an inhale, catapult forward, lift that back thigh up, and breathe. Okay, so the hard version is arms overhead, hands together. A little easier is arms wide. You can put your hands in prayer if you need it. Keep breathing. Put the tiny bend in the standing leg. Hug that outer thigh in, thigh bone back. Lifted leg strong. Now straighten the standing leg, reach forward through the heart. Back to first warrior. Bend the standing leg deeper, 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 deeper. Step it way back. Good. Swim those arms to the sky. Reach up. Maybe hands together. Maybe look up. Full stretch. Gorgeous. And release. Hands come down. Well done. Vinyasa or straight to dog. Exhale. Inhale. And exhale all the way back. Good. When you're ready. Left leg is floating up. Inhale. All right, so going slow with this. Exhale, step the foot through. Be on your fingertips. So you're in the high lunge again. I want you to try to stabilize that left thigh as you turn the back heel flat. The hip likes to splay off and then you have to re-find it. Try to keep that. Bend deep down into that front leg. Angle the back foot in. Stay low in the torso. Reach forward through those arms. Just one breath. Strong, the front heel, inner heel grounding. And then inhale, come on up. Virabhadrasana 1. Love this pose. Good. So back leg is strong. That inner heel grounding, drawing inner knee, inner thigh back, tailbone to the earth. Yes. Very nice. Here we go. Lie down, reach forward. Pause. Turn onto the ball of that back foot. Feel how broad your pelvis is. Everyone hug the front thigh in. Yes. And shift forward. Use the blocks if you need them. Put the arms where you need them. Eventually, arms overhead looking forward. But make it work for you today, always. Standing leg, top of the thigh back. Yes. Put a little bend in the leg. Just test the waters. Straighten the lifted leg vigorously. Lift it up from its root. Inhale. Last breath through the head. You got this. Now bend the standing leg deep. Lifted leg high. Bend that standing leg. Come on, down, 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 down. Then step way back. First warrior. Nice. Reach those arms forward and up. Maybe hands together. Maybe look up. Full stretch. Tail drops. Heart rises. And release. Hands come down. Awesome. Vinyasa. I recommend the vinyasa unless you're really beat, because stretching the front pelvis and the front chest after, because all these are forward bends, it should feel really good. We'll meet in the dog pose. How are we doing? Let's take a child's pose. Just feel in child's pose right about now. Rest. If you need a block, if you need a prop, use it. Just let yourself rest for a moment. Well, the big test in this pose is, in this movement principle, is really Utthita Hasta Padangusthasana, isn't it? Stretch your arms overhead. Curl your toes under. Press back to dog. Nice. Take a breath. Inhale. Bend your legs a lot. Up to the top. Inhale, long, 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 long. Exhale all the breath out. Through the chair. Nice deep bend in the knees. It'll feel good. And press and rise. And release. Good. So grab your strap unless you know you don't need a strap. Most of us do. Put the strap around the ball of your right foot. Alternately, you hook the big toe. Lift the knee high enough that you can get that shoulder head back so you feel even right and left. Other hand is on your hip. And pause. Is this hip already hiked up? Do you need to root it down? And as you do you need to hug your standing thigh in? If you've got it this far, you're in the pose. If you can, straighten the leg. It does not matter how high the leg goes. Be more interested in keeping the standing leg solid and the lifted leg, the root of that thigh down. So again, you're level right and left. Standing thigh. Can you press the top of the standing thigh back, lengthening the tailbone down? So there's your Tadasana feeling. Lifted leg, root of thigh down, toes up. Nicely done. One more breath. Keep the leg up. Just one breath. Arms to the sky. Inhale. Slowly lower that leg. And answer prayer. Second side. Maybe this is the easy side. So hook the toe or set up your strap. Strap is not necessarily better. It's whatever you need. And again, we're going to bring the knee high enough with the hand inside that you can get the shoulder head back. Can you feel right now? Did that hip hike up? Get things level. And when or if you're ready, extend the leg forward. Breathe. So again, I'd be just as happy as your leg were here if you were stabilizing legs and pelvis. That's what this pose is about. It's not about how high your leg gets. Very good work. So your standing leg, for many of us, that's the hard piece because the standing leg buckles forward. Can you take that thigh back, even soften that groin back as the tail lengthens down? Lifted leg, root of thigh down. Both thighs have a feeling of hugging in to one another. Good. Very nice. Ready? Arms up. Keep the arms strong. Lower that foot. Bring your hands to prayer. Grateful for the end of that pose. Release. Go ahead and check it out, everybody. Let it go. Top of the mat. Inhale, we stretch up. Exhale, we fold down. Inhale, we lengthen forward. And exhale, step or hop, chaturanga. Take a vinyasa. Enjoy the upward facing. Nice. And back to the downward facing. Good. Inhale, plank. And slowly lower to the mat, all the way down. Good. All right. So a little bit more balancing of the leg work. There's many, many different ways to do this work. Oftentimes the arms are involved as well, but today we're going to leave the arms out of it. So go ahead and put your hands flat on the floor by the bottom ribs, like a Shalabhasana B situation. Lift the shoulders up, draw the elbows back, and just a little lift of the chest. Again, we're concentrating a little bit more on the deep pelvis, low back, thigh connection. So go ahead and pick your right leg up. Good. And just ask yourself, do you need to suck the thigh in? Are both front hip points touching the floor evenly? Inhale and press the foot down. Exhale. Second side, inhale, always leading with that inseam. Good. And again, take it as high as you can, but be more interested in keeping it level. Does the thigh need to be sucked in? And also, are your two hip points facing the floor? And sometimes it's the leg that's on the ground that has to work harder to get that. Inhale. And foot down. Good. On the breath. Chest rises. Inhale. Send the tailbone down. Inhale. Right leg up. So try not to change the pelvis or lower back. Exhale down. Inhale left. Exhale down. Inhale right. Exhale down. Inhale left. Exhale down. Inhale here and lower down and rest. Good. And now your two arms are overhead. And you're either on your chin or your forehead, whatever one feels more comfortable. If your shoulders are super tight today, take your arms a little wider into a V. Turn the arms externally, so pinky side of the arm is down. Exhale completely. Long tailbone. Feel both hip points facing the floor. Inhale, right leg, left arm lifts. You can lift the chest a little bit too. And exhale down. Changing sides. Inhale. And exhale down. Again, keep the pelvis square. Inhale, right leg, left arm. Both hip points facing the floor evenly. Exhale down. Inhale up, alternating. Exhale down. One more each side. Inhale up. Exhale down. Inhale up. And exhale down. Everything lifts. Inhale, arms, legs, back of neck is long. Just one big breath. Roll the buttocks away from one another. Reach for the big toes and come down and rest. Exhale. Really nice work. Go ahead and press on up to the plank position. And head back to downward facing dog. Good. Inhale. Jump through and sit any way you can. Have your strap handy. And let's come back onto our backs. Take a moment. Sometimes what seems to be simpler, smaller movement is actually more challenging than the sort of bigger, if you will, flowier movement. So give yourself a moment. Notice, if nothing else, the force of your concentration. Okay, so back to Supta Padangusthasana 1. Right leg is up. Put the strap around the arch of that foot, really close to the ball mound, right at that little edge. It's done several ways, but for most people, you get the most benefit from this situation. Good. And just a breath or two here. So you can see that foot, or all four corners of your foot, inner heel, outer heel, big toe, little toe, the mounds, are they all facing the ceiling, reaching the ceiling evenly? Is your leg truly neutral? And is the root of that thigh stretching to the front of the room? And is in the down leg, the inner thigh rolling down? Do you need to kind of suck that thigh back a little bit? Good. Staying here, inhale. Just leave the strap where it is. Take your two arms overhead without affecting the spine, the ribs. If you can, hover the arms just an inch or two off the floor. Inhale. You're going to lead with the outside edge, the left leg floated up an inch, maybe two. We'll be here for 3 hours. Kidding. Okay, so this is, if you're like me, this is when I really need to power up. Yeah, the lifted leg, that root pressing to the front. The down leg can help by sucking up into its socket, just like that. Front ribs are softening down with each exhale, tailbone to the front of the room, back skull to the back of the room. Full inhalation and exhale, release. Well done. And right over to the second side. So yes, this is a hamstring stretch. That is one of the main reasons we're doing these poses, but it is also a lengthener of the psoas in the down leg. Remember, the psoas starts way up along the part of the spine, right at the rib level, all the way down under the belly to that inseam. Visualize that line, long and passive, going down. That only happens when the root of the lifted leg presses forward. That's what creates an evenness through those psoas muscles. Leg is firm, 4 corners pointing up evenly. Good. Inhale. Exhale, just let the straps go and inhale the arms overhead. Spinning arms. And here's the moment. The minute those arms go, that's the time you soften those front ribs. When you're ready, exhale. The lower leg lifts just an inch or two, leading with that out seam, so you're still lengthening the groin down and towards the heel. That's it. Lifted leg is straight and firm. Root of the thigh, lifted leg to the front of the room. Down leg, suck that thigh back into its socket, levelizing, broadening the back of the pelvis. One more breath. Inhale. Release. Exhale. Well done. Put that strap off to the side. Take a breath. Feet on the floor. CRP. So CRP, remember, feet wide, knees knock in. Let's take the arms across the chest. And sometimes it's nice to sneak the fingers under the shoulder blades and pull the shoulder blades apart. Breathe into that upper back. Sometimes when we do deep core work, there's clenching that goes on in areas that we're not fully aware of. And lift the arms up and change the cross. Snuggle them in really deep. Feel how soft those groins are, how wide your back is. And then we'll finish with Gomukhasana legs. So bring your legs up, cross your knees. Grab the edges of your feet. Either side is fine. Get a good grip on those feet. Try to keep your pelvis flat. And now we're all so different in this pose. Some of you will actually bring the feet almost as high as the knees. And some people, you'll actually need to separate the knees and be closer to crossing shins if those outer hip muscles are really tight. Use the least amount of effort you need to get that stretch. So yes, you're getting your rotators, but you're also getting these outer hip muscles that are instrumental in holding us up in those one leg balancing poses. Inhale. And second side, exhale. Right, and it's the second side. It may be much looser, it may be a little tighter. Just find the right place, the right grip for your hands. Trying to keep the pelvis flat. It's tempting to let it tuck, but you'll get probably a deeper release if you keep the tailbone on the floor. Almost trying to find that natural curve again. Shoulders are easy, face is soft. Soft. Eyes are soft. And then happy baby pose. And then stretch your legs wide open. I like to slide my hands to my inner thighs. So the other muscles that have to work really hard in this work are the inner thighs. So outer hips and inner thighs work really hard. So just let them stretch. And if your knees don't get all the way straight, don't worry about it. One more breath. Now to come out, put your hands under your legs, put a little bend in the knees, and use your arm strength to bring the legs back together. Hug the knees into the chest. Inhale. Exhale, nose to knees, round up. Inhale here. And exhale, relax. Shavasana. Good. So if there's any last little movements you need, any props you need, set it up. Get comfortable. Feel the legs plop open. And can you feel that the plopping is starting in the hip sockets, deep in the pelvic bowl? The whole leg. Top of the thigh, knee level, calf, heel, feet, all rolling open. Release the weight into the earth. Feel your pelvic bowl heavy, your belly soft. The shoulders drop. Neck soft, throat soft. Feel how smooth the skin of the forehead is. The tongue soft in the throat. Let your brain sink into the back of the skull. Let go thoroughly. Let your body continue to soften downwards. Spread your toes. Maybe rub your thumbs against your fingertips. Inhale, stretch your right arm overhead. Exhale, bend the legs, place the feet on the floor, one at a time. Softly roll over onto the right side, into that arm. Take a breath. And then push that left hand down and come on up to an easy sit. Sitting tall with the eyes closed, just let yourself pause. See if you can linger in your feeling of Shavasana, even as you sit upright. With gratitude, we bring the hands together in front of the heart. Just making a simple wish. May all beings everywhere know love and peace. Om Shanti. Namaste.